I was in the living room, watching my favorite soap opera, when my son-in-law walked in, turned off the TV, and said roughly, "Go to your room and stay quiet, old woman. This living room is mine now." My daughter Sarah looked away at the floor. I took my purse and left in silence. The next day, a man in a suit knocked on the door. He stood there, incredulous at what he was seeing. "My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 70 years old, a widow for 8 years, mother of an only daughter who now cannot look me in the eye. I live in this house because they asked me to, because Sarah said she needed me close, because Greg, my son-in-law, smiled and said there was plenty of room." That was 2 years ago. Now things are different. Now he walks into the living room as if he owns the very air I breathe. That night, when he turned off the television, I felt something break inside me. It wasn't rage. It was something worse. It was the confirmation that I no longer mattered. Sarah was sitting in the armchair in the corner, hands in her lap, motionless. Greg looked at me with contempt. He didn't even wait for me to respond. He simply pointed his chin toward the hallway and turned the TV back on. But this time, he put on a football game. The volume was loud. The lights were off. I stood up slowly. My knees crack when I stand up. I took my purse from the sofa. Nobody said anything. I walked toward my room. I closed the door. I sat on the bed, and I cried in silence. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when Greg called me Mrs. Vance with respect. There was a time when Sarah hugged me when she got home from work. There was a time when this house smelled of fresh coffee and Sunday laughter. But that time is gone. It left little by little, so slowly that I almost didn't notice. First, it was the casual comment. "Mom, better not cook today. We ordered takeout." Then it was the space. "Mom, we need that room for Greg's office. Is it okay if you move to the back room?" And I accepted. I always accepted. Because I thought that was how a mother should behave, without getting in the way, without demanding, without bothering anyone. The back room is small. It has a window that looks out onto the alley. It smells of dampness when it rains. The bed creaks. The closet doesn't close properly, but it is mine. Or so I thought. Until Greg started coming in without knocking. "I need a box I stored here. I'm going to use this space for my things." I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. I just waited for him to leave. I just took a deep breath and kept going. Sarah changed after she got married. Not immediately. It was gradual. At first, she still called me 3 times a week. She still came to visit me on Sundays. She still asked me for advice about the house, about food, about life. But Greg was always there. Always with an opinion. Always with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And little by little, my daughter began to repeat his words. "Mom, you don't need to come over so much. Mom, we are busy this weekend. Mom, Greg says it would be better if you lived with us. That way you won't be alone." And I accepted, because I thought I would be closer to her, because I thought that maybe, if we lived together, we would recover those moments from before, those moments when she told me everything, when I was her confidant, her friend, her mother. I sold my small condo. The one I had bought with my husband's life insurance money, the one that had been my refuge after becoming a widow. I sold it because Sarah asked me to, because Greg said it was for the best, because I believed my place was with my family. The first few months were good. I cooked, I cleaned, I helped with the laundry. Sarah worked all day as a secretary at an insurance company. Greg was a sales manager at an electronics distributor. They arrived tired. I had dinner ready for them. I ironed their clothes. I made sure the house was in order. They thanked me. But the thanks became shorter, colder, emptier, until they stopped giving them. Greg started complaining. About the food, about the noise I made when walking, about the light I left on in the bathroom, about everything. Sarah didn't say anything. She just lowered her gaze. She just whispered, "All right, Greg, leave her alone." But he never left me alone. Every day he found something new. Every day his voice was harder. Every day I felt smaller. 3 months ago, Greg lost his job. I don't know exactly what happened. He doesn't talk about it. Sarah doesn't either. But since then, he is at home all day, sitting on the couch, watching television, drinking beer, and looking at me as if I were the culprit of his misfortune. Since then, everything got worse. Now he controls the house. He decides what is watched on television. He decides when we eat. He decides when I can leave my room. And Sarah allows it. My daughter, the girl I raised alone, the girl I taught to be strong, is now a shadow that obeys, a shadow that no longer looks at me. That night, after locking myself in my room, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the bed, with the light off, listening to the noise of the television on the other side of the wall, listening to Greg's loud laughter, listening to Sarah's silence, and I asked myself how I had gotten here, how I had allowed my life to be reduced to this, to a small room, to an old purse, to a silence that was drowning me. The next day, I woke up early. As always, I made coffee. As always, I sat in the kitchen, waiting for them to get up. But this time something was different. There was a white envelope on the table, an envelope with my name written by hand. I opened it. Inside was a brochure for a place called Golden Horizon Care Home, a home for seniors. The photos showed spacious rooms, green gardens, smiling people. But I knew those brochures. I knew what they hid. I left the envelope on the table. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Greg came out of his room at 10 in the morning. He poured himself coffee without looking at me. He sat in front of me. He took the envelope. He smiled. "You saw it, right?" I nodded. "It's a good place, Mrs. Vance. Sarah and I thought you would be better off there, with people your age, with activities, with medical care." I didn't answer. He continued. "You are very lonely here. We work all day. Well, Sarah works. I am looking for something new. But the point is that we cannot take care of you as you deserve." I looked him in the eyes. "I don't need to be taken care of." He laughed, a dry laugh. "Of course you do. You are 70 years old. You cannot be alone. It's not safe." Sarah appeared in the kitchen. Her eyes were red, as if she had cried, or as if she hadn't slept. She sat next to Greg. She looked at me for a second, then she looked down. "Mom, we just want what's best for you." Her voice was so low I barely heard it. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask her what had happened to the girl I raised, to the girl who promised me we would always be together. But I didn't scream. I just nodded. I just said, "I'm going to think about it." And I stood up. That afternoon, while they went out shopping, I stayed alone in the house. I reviewed the brochure more carefully. I looked for reviews on the internet. What I found froze my blood. Golden Horizon Care Home had terrible ratings. Complaints from families. Reports of abuse. Real photos showing dirty facilities. Abandoned. Dangerous. This wasn't a home. It was a warehouse. A place where families left their old folks to forget about them. And Greg wanted to send me there. And Sarah was allowing it. That night, someone knocked on the door. 3 firm knocks. Greg was in the shower. Sarah was in her room. I went to open it. On the other side was a man. He must have been about 68 years old. Gray suit, white hair. Tired but kind eyes. He looked at me and smiled. "Mrs. Eleanor Vance." I nodded. "I am Arthur Pendleton. I don't know if you remember me." I looked at him carefully. That name, that face. And then I remembered him. Arthur, the man who had arrived at my door 15 years ago. Desperate, out of work, without money, with 2 small children. The man to whom I lent $1,000 without asking for anything in return. The man who promised me that one day he would pay it back. And now he was here. "Arthur," I whispered. He nodded. "I came to pay you back, Mrs. Vance. But I also came to warn you. Can we talk?" I let him in. Greg was still in the shower. Sarah was still locked in her room. Arthur entered carefully, looking around as if he were evaluating the place. He sat on the kitchen chair. I poured him coffee. He accepted it with a sad smile. "I never forgot what you did for me, Mrs. Vance. Never." I sat in front of him. "You don't have to pay me back anything, Arthur. It was a long time ago." He shook his head. "I have to. And I have to tell you something important. Something I discovered by chance." He explained that he was now a retired lawyer, that he had managed to finish his studies thanks to the money I lent him, that his children grew up well, that his life improved, and that 2 weeks ago, while reviewing documents at the courthouse for a personal matter, He saw my name in a file that left him frozen. Your son-in-law is processing a declaration of mental incapacity against you, Mrs. Vance. He is presenting false documents stating that you cannot make decisions for yourself, that you need legal guardianship, and he wants to be your guardian. I felt the ground opening beneath my feet. Mental incapacity, guardianship. Greg wanted to control me legally. He wanted to make all my decisions. He wanted to take over everything. Arthur took some papers out of his briefcase. I brought copies. Look, there they were. Documents with signatures that weren't mine. Medical reports from doctors I had never seen. Statements claiming that I suffered from advanced dementia. Everything was a lie. Everything was fabricated. And at the end of the file, there was something else. A deed document. The property my husband left me before he died. A plot of land on the outskirts of the city. A plot that was now worth more than $150,000. Greg knew it. Greg wanted it, and he was willing to destroy me to get it. Why? I whispered. Arthur looked at me with sadness. For money, Mrs. Vance. It is always for money. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of Arthur. I just nodded. I just took a deep breath. I just asked, "What can I do?" He took my hand. "Fight. But you need proof. You need to prove that you are perfectly fine, and you need to protect that property before he takes it." I nodded again. Arthur stood up. He left me his card. "Call me when you are ready. I am going to help you. I owe it to you." And he left. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, thinking about everything. About how I had gotten here. About all the signs I ignored. About all the moments when I should have said something and stayed quiet. I thought about my life. About my husband. About the years we spent together. About how we built everything from nothing. I met William when I was 20 years old. He was a carpenter. I worked in a fabric store. We fell in love quickly. We got married within a year. Sarah was born 2 years later. William worked day and night. I left my job to take care of our daughter. We lived in a small apartment. We didn't have much, but we were happy. William always said that one day we would have our own house, that one day Sarah would study at the university, that one day everything would be better. And he worked to make that happen. Sarah was a sweet girl, curious, intelligent. She loved to draw. She loved to read. I spent hours with her, teaching her letters, numbers, songs. William came home tired from work, but he always found time to play with her, to listen to her stories, to hug her before sleeping. We were a small family, but united, very united. When Sarah was 10 years old, William bought the land. He saved for years. He sold tools. He worked weekends. And finally, he achieved it. A plot of land on the outskirts of town. "One day, we are going to build our house here," he told me. "One day, Sarah is going to have her own room. One day we are going to have a garden." I hugged him. I cried with happiness. It was our dream. Our future. But William died before he could build that house. A heart attack. At 52 years old. Sudden. Without warning. One day he was fine. The next day he was gone. Sarah was 19 years old. She was in college, studying business administration. I was destroyed. I didn't know how to go on. I didn't know how to pay the bills. I didn't know how to live without him. But I had to. For Sarah, for me, for William, the life insurance saved us. It wasn't much, $30,000, but it was enough for Sarah to finish college, for me to buy a small condo, for us to keep going. The land remained in my name. I never sold it. I never touched it. It was William's dream. It was our history. It was the only thing I had left of him. Sarah graduated with honors. She got a job quickly. I was so proud, so happy to see her grow, to see her become a strong and independent woman. She visited me often. She told me about her job, about her friends, about her plans. I lived for those moments, for those conversations, for those hugs. She met Greg at a company party. He was charismatic, polite, well-dressed. Sarah fell in love quickly, too quickly. I tried to get to know him better. I invited him to dinner. I asked him questions. He answered with smiles, with compliments, with nice words. But something in his eyes made me uncomfortable. Something I couldn't explain. a coldness, a calculation, but Sarah was happy. And I didn't want to ruin that. I didn't want to be the mother who distrusts, the mother who interferes. So I kept quiet, and I supported them. They got married 2 years later. It was a small wedding. Beautiful. I spent part of my savings to help with the expenses. Greg didn't put in much. He said he was saving for the future, for the house they were going to buy. Sarah accepted everything. So did I. On the wedding day, when I saw her walking toward the altar, I felt a mixture of happiness and fear. Happiness because my daughter was starting her own life. Fear because something inside me told me this wasn't going to end well. The first few years of marriage seemed normal. Sarah kept working. Greg too. They lived in a rented apartment. I visited them every 2 weeks. I brought food. I helped with the cleaning. Sarah always welcomed me with joy. Greg with politeness, but never with warmth. Never with true affection. There was always that distance. That invisible wall between him and me. Then the comments started. "Mrs. Vance, you are still living alone in that condo. Aren't you afraid of being alone at your age? Wouldn't it be better to sell that place and come live with us?" I said no, that I was fine, that I liked my independence. But Greg insisted. And Sarah began to insist too, until finally I gave in. Until I sold my condo. Until I moved in with them. And that's where my downfall began. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. Why did Greg treat me worse and worse? Why did Sarah drift further and further away? But now, with the documents Arthur showed me, everything made sense. Greg knew about the land. He knew it was worth money, a lot of money, and he wanted to keep it, but he couldn't. Because it was in my name. Because I was alive. Because I had control over my life. So he needed to take that control away from me. He needed to have me declared incapacitated. He needed to lock me in a nursing home. He needed to make me disappear. I got out of bed. I walked to the mirror. I looked at myself. 70 years old, deep wrinkles, white hair, trembling hands, but eyes alive, mind clear, heart broken but beating. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't incapacitated. I was tired, hurt, betrayed, but alive, very alive. And I wasn't going to let Greg destroy me. I wasn't going to let him keep what William built. I wasn't going to let Sarah become an accomplice to this. Not without a fight. The next morning, Greg and Sarah took me to visit the Golden Horizon Care Home. They insisted. They said it was just a visit, that I didn't have to decide anything yet. I accepted. Because I needed to see. Because I needed to confirm. Because I needed to know how far they were capable of going. The place was 40 minutes from the city, in an isolated area, surrounded by trees. It seemed quiet from the outside. But when we went in, reality hit me. The smell of disinfectant mixed with dampness, the dirty walls, the scratched floors, the elderly people sitting in wheelchairs, staring at nothing, nurses with faces of annoyance. Nobody smiled. Nobody spoke. Everything was silence and abandonment. The director welcomed us. A woman of about 50, excessive makeup, fake smile. "Welcome to Golden Horizon. Your mother is going to be very well taken care of here." Greg smiled. Sarah lowered her gaze. I just observed. The woman showed us a room, small, dark, with an old bed and a broken closet. "She will sleep here, shared with another resident." Of course. But it is comfortable. I looked at Sarah. She still wouldn't look at me. Greg asked about the papers. The director took out some forms. "We just need the lady to sign here. And the initial deposit, $5,000. Greg nodded. I didn't sign. I said I needed to think about it. The director frowned. Greg clenched his jaw, but they didn't say anything. Yet. On the way back, Greg drove in silence. Sarah looked out the window. I sat in the back, feeling the weight of everything, knowing that time was running out, knowing that I had to act, soon. That night, Greg sat in front of me at the kitchen table. Sarah was making tea at the stove, her back to us. He put the nursing home forms on the table. He pushed them toward me with 2 fingers. "Mrs. Vance, we need you to sign these papers. It is for your own good." I looked at the documents. Small print. Clauses I didn't understand. Blank spaces waiting for my signature. "Why such a rush?" I asked. Greg smiled. That smile that never reached his eyes. It's not a rush. It's planning. You need care. We cannot give it to you. It's that simple. Sarah approached with the cups of tea. She put them on the table. Her hands were trembling slightly. I looked at her. She avoided my gaze. Sarah, do you also think I need to be locked up in that place? My voice came out firmer than I expected. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Greg. He shot her a warning look. She swallowed hard. Mom, it's a good place. You're going to be well taken care of. You're going to have company. You won't be alone. Every word sounded rehearsed, as if she had repeated it 1,000 times in front of the mirror until she convinced herself. I'm not alone, I said. I'm with you too, aren't I? Greg leaned forward. Mrs. Vance, let's be realistic. You are 70 years old. Sometimes you forget things. Sometimes you get confused. You need professional supervision. I looked him straight in the eyes. I don't forget anything. I don't get confused. I know exactly what is happening. He frowned. What do you mean by that? I didn't answer. I just drank my tea. I just held my gaze steady. He stood up abruptly. Think about it carefully. You have until Friday to sign. If you don't do it, we're going to have to take other measures. He left the kitchen. Sarah stayed there, standing, hands clasped. Mom, please, she whispered. I said nothing. I just got up and went to my room. The next day, while they were out, I called Arthur. We met at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the house. He arrived with more documents. He sat in front of me. He ordered 2 coffees. He waited until we were alone. Mrs. Vance, the situation is more serious than I thought. I found more papers. Greg has already filed a formal petition for guardianship. He has a doctor who signed a report stating that you suffer from severe cognitive decline. That doctor is Dr. Harrison. He is no relative of mine, but I investigated. He has a history of falsifying diagnoses for money. He has already been sanctioned twice by the medical board. I felt my stomach turn. How much did Greg pay him? Arthur checked his notes. I don't have the exact figure, but according to bank records I was able to obtain legally, Greg withdrew $8,000 3 weeks ago, exactly 2 days before that medical report was filed. $8,000. That amount of money, to destroy me, to take away my freedom, to steal the only thing I had left of William. I need to know one thing, Mrs. Vance. Arthur continued. Did you ever sign any document giving Greg power over your assets? I shook my head. Never. I never signed anything. He nodded. Good. That means the land is still completely yours. But if he manages to get you declared incapacitated, he automatically becomes your legal guardian. And as guardian, he can sell, mortgage, or transfer any property in your name, without you being able to do anything. Panic invaded me. What can I do? How do I stop him? Arthur took out a folder. First, we need to prove that you are completely mentally healthy. I am going to take you to a trusted psychiatrist. He will evaluate you and issue an official report. That report will contradict Dr. Harrison's false report. Second, we need to protect the land. The safest way is to transfer it to a trust or donate it to a charitable institution. That way, even if Greg gets guardianship, he won't be able to touch it. Donate the land. The idea hurt. It was William's dream. It was our history. Arthur took my hand. Mrs. Vance, I understand what it means to you. But think, do you prefer Greg to keep it? Do you prefer him to sell it and spend the money while you are locked in that horrible asylum? Or do you prefer that land to serve for something good? To help other people? To honor your husband's memory? He was right. Arthur was absolutely right. There is a foundation I know, he continued. It's called the Haven of Peace Foundation. It is a shelter for older women who have suffered abuse or family abandonment. They need a place to build dignified housing. Your land could be perfect for that. And you would remain as honorary founder. Your name and your husband's would be on a plaque. It would be your legacy, not Greg's. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. But this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of clarity, of purpose, of decision. Do it, I said. Transfer the land to that foundation. But don't tell anyone yet. I need time. Arthur nodded. We are going to do it legally. It will take a few days. Meanwhile, act normal. Don't tell them anything. Don't sign anything. Just wait. I nodded. We said goodbye. I returned to the house. Greg was watching television. Sarah was in her room. Everything seemed normal, but nothing was normal. I was no longer the same woman I had been a week ago. Something was waking up inside me, something that had been asleep for too long. That night, Sarah came into my room. She knocked on the door softly. "Mom, can I come in?" I was sitting on the bed, reading. "Come in." She entered. She sat next to me. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "Mom, I know this is hard for you. But Greg is right. You need care. We cannot give it to you. I work all day. He is looking for a job. There is no one here to take care of you." I closed the book. I looked at her. "Sarah, do you really believe I am sick? That I can't take care of myself?" She looked away. "I don't know, Mom. Sometimes I see you distracted. Sometimes you forget things. Sometimes." I interrupted her. "What things do I forget, Sarah? Name one." She remained silent. "I can't remember right now. But, because there is nothing to remember," I said. "I am not sick. I am tired. I am sad. I am hurt. But I am not crazy." She started to cry. "Mom, I just want what's best for you." "Greg says that place is good, that you will be happy there. And do you believe him?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just cried harder. I hugged her. I felt her body trembling against mine. "Sarah, what happened to you? Where is the strong girl I raised? The girl who never let herself be defeated?" She sobbed. "I don't know, Mom. I don't know." I held her. I rocked her like when she was little, like when she had nightmares, and I calmed her down. But this time I knew I couldn't save her, that she had to save herself, or sink with Greg. The next day, Arthur took me to the psychiatrist, Dr. Stephen Caldwell, a man of about 60, kind, patient. He asked me questions for 2 hours, about my life, about my memories, about my ability to make decisions. He gave me cognitive tests, memory exercises, simple math problems. At the end, he smiled. "Mrs. Vance, you are perfectly fine. Your mind is completely clear. There is no sign of dementia or cognitive decline. I am going to issue an official report, and if necessary, I will testify in court." I felt immense relief. I had proof. I had a defense. But there was still more needed. Arthur explained that we needed evidence of Greg's plan. We needed recordings, conversations, something that demonstrated his intention to defraud me. "Do you know someone trustworthy who can help us? Someone who has access to your house? Someone Greg won't suspect?" I thought. And then I remembered Brenda Lopez, my neighbor, a nurse, divorced. She lived alone in the apartment next door. She had been kind to me since I moved in. She brought me coffee, asked me how I was. She had noticed things. She had seen things. And she never said anything. But I knew she knew. That afternoon, I knocked on her door. She opened with a smile. "Mrs. Vance, how nice to see you. Come in. Come in." We went in. Her apartment smelled of vanilla. There were plants everywhere, photos of her children on the walls. It was warm, cozy, everything my room wasn't. We sat down. I told her everything, every detail, every lie, every plan. She listened in silence. When I finished, she had tears in her eyes. I knew something was wrong. "I have heard them arguing. I have seen how they treat you, but I didn't know how to help without interfering where I wasn't called." I took her hand. "Now you can help. I need you to record Greg's conversations, to document everything. You can do it." She nodded without hesitation. "I'm going to do it. For you. And for all the women who have been treated like this." She hugged me. I broke down. I cried in her arms. I cried everything I had kept inside. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the rage. And she just held me, let me cry, let me heal a little. Friday arrived. Greg asked me for the signed papers. I told him I wasn't ready yet. He slammed the table. "What do you mean you're not ready? The time is up. Either you sign now or we proceed legally." I looked at him. "Proceed however you want. I am not signing anything." His face turned red. Sarah entered the living room. "Greg, calm down." He ignored her. "You don't understand, stubborn old woman. This is going to happen one way or another, with or without your consent." And he stormed out. Sarah stood there, trembling. "Mom, why do you make it so difficult?" I stood up. I walked toward her. I looked her in the eyes. "Because your husband wants to rob me. Because he wants to lock me up. Because he wants to keep what your father built. And you are letting him." She shook her head. "It's not like that. He just wants—" "What does he want, Sarah? Tell me. Look at me and tell me he wants to help me." She couldn't. She just lowered her head. She just cried. And I walked away. The following days were a silent torture. Greg stopped talking to me completely. He only looked at me with hatred every time he passed by. Sarah avoided being in the same room as me. The house filled with a heavy, dense silence, as if the air itself were poisoned. I kept to my routine. I woke up early, prepared my coffee, sat in the kitchen, but I no longer cooked for them. I no longer cleaned their things. I no longer pretended everything was fine. A line had been drawn, and they knew it. One afternoon, while Greg was out, Sarah approached me. She had an envelope in her hands. She put it on the table in front of me. "Mom, I need you to read this." I opened the envelope. Inside was a legal document, several pages. I read the first line and felt my heart stop. "Petition for declaration of incapacity, Eleanor Vance." It was official. Greg had already filed the lawsuit. The document cited Dr. Harrison's false report. It mentioned episodes of confusion, memory loss, inability to make responsible financial decisions, all lies, all fabricated. "Did you sign this?" I asked without looking up. Sarah remained silent. I looked up. "Sarah, I asked you a question. Did you sign this document?" She had tears in her eyes. "Greg said it was necessary. He said it was the only way to protect you." I felt something break inside me. It wasn't pain. It was disappointment. It was the final confirmation that my daughter had chosen, and she hadn't chosen me. Protect me from what? My voice came out cold, controlled. Sarah wiped her tears. "From yourself, Mom. You're older. You can't live alone. You need help, and we can't give it to you here." I stood up, walked toward her, looked her straight in the eye. "Sarah, look at me carefully. Look at me and tell me you really believe I'm crazy, that I can't think, that I can't decide for myself." She looked away. I don't know, Mom." "Greg says that." "Greg says," I interrupted her. "It is always what Greg says. And what do you say, Sarah? What does my daughter think?" She started crying again. "I don't know what to think. I'm confused. Greg is under a lot of pressure. He lost his job. We have debts. And he says the land could—" She stopped, covered her mouth. But it was too late. She had already said it. I nodded slowly. "There it is, the land. That is what he wants. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about my well-being. He just wants the land your father left me, and you are helping him steal it from me." "It's not stealing," she said weakly. It's to secure our future. Greg says we can sell it and pay the debts, and there will be money left to start a business, to start over." I felt nauseous. "And me? What happens to me while you start over? With the money from my land?" She didn't answer. She just cried. I took the document, folded it, put it in the envelope. "Tell Greg I'm going to fight this, that I'm not going to let him rob me, that I'm not signing anything, and that if he wants that land, he's going to have to kill me first." I left the kitchen. Sarah stayed there, crying alone. That night, Brenda knocked on my door. She entered quickly, looking sideways. She closed the door behind her, took out her phone. "Mrs. Vance, I have something. I recorded it this afternoon." Greg was talking on the phone on the balcony. He didn't know I could hear him from my window. She played the audio. Greg's voice was clear. "Yeah, Dr. Harrison, I already filed the petition. With your report, it'll be easy. The judge will declare her incapacitated in 2 weeks tops. And once I'm her legal guardian, I sell the land and pay you the other $5,000 I owe you." "Yeah, I know. It was a good deal for both of us. She doesn't even suspect anything. She's a stupid old woman." I felt my blood run cold. Stupid old woman. That's what he called me. That's how he saw me. Brenda turned off the audio. "There's more. I also recorded him talking to Sarah. Do you want to hear it?" I nodded. She played another audio. Sarah's voice sounded tired, defeated. Greg, I don't know if this is right. She's my mother. We're betraying her. Greg's voice was hard. Don't be weak. Your mother had her life. Now it's our turn. That land is worth $150,000. With that, we pay everything off and have enough left to live well for years. Or do you prefer to keep working as a secretary all your life while your mother clings to a plot of land she doesn't even use? Silence. Then Sarah's voice, almost inaudible. No, you're right. Let's do it. Brenda put her phone away. Looked at me with sadness. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Vance. I know it hurts. But now you have proof. This can help you in court. I nodded. I couldn't speak. I couldn't process what I had just heard. My daughter, my own daughter, calling me mother while conspiring to rob me. Brenda hugged me. You are strong. You are going to get out of this. I am going to help you. Arthur is going to help you. You are not alone. The next day, I took the audios to Arthur. He listened to them in silence. When they finished, he hit the desk with his fist. This is gold, Mrs. Vance. With this, we can prove fraud, conspiracy, forgery of documents. Greg is going to go to jail, and Sarah could also face charges as an accomplice. I felt a knot in my stomach. Sarah, too. Arthur nodded. She signed the documents knowing they were false. She participated in the conspiracy. The law makes no distinctions. I thought about my daughter, about the girl I had raised, about all the nights I spent awake taking care of her when she was sick, about all the sacrifices I made so she would have a good life, about all the dreams I had for her, and now she was there, conspiring against me, betraying me for money, for a man who didn't even truly love her. Is there any way to protect her? I asked. Arthur looked at me surprised. Do you want to protect her? After everything she did, I nodded. She is my daughter. She is confused. She is manipulated. But she is my daughter. Arthur sighed. We can argue that she acted under emotional coercion, that Greg manipulated her, that she didn't fully understand the legal consequences. But it will depend on the judge, and on how much she cooperates. I nodded. Then let's do it. We are going to proceed against Greg, but let's give Sarah a chance to rectify, a chance to tell the truth. The following days were strange. I kept living in that house, but it was as if I were a ghost. Greg and Sarah lived their lives. They talked to each other, ate together, watched TV together. I existed on the margins, invisible, ignored, but I knew something they didn't know. I had the evidence. I had the plan. I had control. For the first time in years, I had the power. A week later, I received the official notification. The hearing date was set. It would be in 10 days. The judge would review the case and decide whether or not I was capable of managing my own affairs. Greg was euphoric. I saw him smile when the letter arrived. I saw him celebrate with a beer. I saw him call Dr. Harrison to confirm he would be present to testify. Sarah was quiet, nervous, but she didn't say anything. She didn't do anything. She just went along with the plan. I called Arthur. We are ready. He responded with confidence. We are ready. We have Dr. Caldwell's report confirming your mental capacity. We have the audios proving the conspiracy. We have evidence of the payments to Dr. Harrison. We have everything. Greg doesn't know what awaits him. I took a deep breath. And the land. It is already transferred to the Haven of Peace Foundation. The documents are signed and registered. Greg can't touch it. Even if he wins guardianship, that land no longer exists in his name. He can no longer sell it. He can no longer do anything with it. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. William's land, our dream. It was no longer mine. But it wasn't Greg's either. It was going to serve for something good. It was going to help women like me, abandoned women, betrayed women, women who deserved dignity. William would be proud. I was sure of that. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, about how I had come to be here, about all the decisions I made, about all the times I kept quiet when I should have spoken, about all the times I accepted the unacceptable. I thought about William, about what he would tell me if he were here. He would probably tell me to fight, not to let myself be defeated, to defend what was mine, And that was exactly what I was going to do. At 6 in the morning, I got up. I showered. I put on my best dress. The black dress I wore for important occasions. I combed my hair carefully. I applied light makeup. I looked in the mirror, 70 years old, but standing tall, firm, ready. I left my room. Greg and Sarah were already awake. He was dressed in a suit, she in a gray dress. Both looked nervous, but also confident. They thought they had already won. They thought today was just a formality. They thought I was just a stupid old woman who understood nothing. "Good morning," I said. Greg barely looked at me. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance. Ready to go to court?" I nodded. More than ready. Something in my tone made him doubt. He looked at me more closely. But he said nothing. We went in the car. Greg drove. Sarah sat in the front. I sat in the back, looking out the window, watching the city pass by, thinking that this might be the last time I traveled with them, that after today, everything was going to change, forever. We arrived at the courthouse, a gray building, tall, cold. We entered. There were other people waiting, families, lawyers, officials. We sat on a bench. Greg reviewed papers. Sarah looked at her phone. I just waited, calm, centered, and then I saw him. Arthur entered through the door, with a briefcase, with a discreet smile. Behind him came Dr. Caldwell, and behind the doctor came Brenda, my allies, my team, my defense. Greg saw them. He frowned. "Who are they?" he asked. I smiled. "My lawyer, my psychiatrist, and my witness." His face went pale. Sarah looked at me with wide eyes. "Mom, what is happening?" I stood up, walked toward Arthur. "I am ready," I told him. He nodded. "Then let's begin." The courtroom was small, white walls, fluorescent lights, a long table for the judge, wooden chairs for those present. The air smelled of old paper and disinfectant. We all entered, Greg and his lawyer on one side, me, Arthur, Dr. Caldwell, and Brenda on the other. Sarah sat behind Greg, hands trembling in her lap. The judge entered. A man of about 60, gray hair, thick glasses, serious expression. We all stood up. He indicated for us to sit. "We are here to review the petition for declaration of mental incapacity filed by Mr. Greg Ortega against Mrs. Eleanor Vance," said the judge with a firm voice. "We will proceed with introductions. Mr. Ortega, your lawyer may begin." Greg's lawyer stood up. He was a young man, cheap suit, nervous voice. He presented the case. He spoke of the alleged cognitive decline, of the forgetfulness, of the inability to make decisions. He presented Dr. Harrison's report. The judge reviewed it in silence. "Is Dr. Harrison present?" asked the judge. The lawyer nodded. A man entered the room. He must have been about 50. Overweight, rumpled suit, sweat on his forehead. He sat on the stand, swore to tell the truth. Greg's lawyer began to question him. "Dr. Harrison, did you examine Mrs. Eleanor Vance?" The doctor nodded. "Yes, I examined her a month ago." "And what was your diagnosis?" "Moderate cognitive decline with a tendency toward severe. Recent memory loss, temporal confusion, inability to handle complex finances." Every word was a lie. I stared at him. He avoided my gaze. Arthur took notes. Dr. Caldwell, too. The judge listened attentively. "Do you recommend that Mrs. Vance be placed under guardianship?" asked the lawyer. "Yes. It is necessary for her protection and well-being." The lawyer nodded, satisfied. "I have no further questions." The judge looked toward our side. "Does the defense wish to question the witness?" Arthur stood up. "Yes, Your Honor." He approached Dr. Harrison. He looked at him with a cold smile. "Dr. Harrison, exactly where and when did you examine Mrs. Vance?" The doctor hesitated. In my office. A month ago. I don't remember the exact date." Arthur took out a paper. "According to your report, it was November 15th. Is that correct?" The doctor nodded quickly. Yes. November 15th. Arthur walked to the table, took another document. "Curious, because according to the entry logs of your clinic, Mrs. Vance was never there. There is no record of her name, no signature, no appointment, nothing. The doctor began to sweat more. It must be an administrative error. Sometimes, not all visits are recorded. Arthur smiled. An administrative error? Or is it that you never examined Mrs. Vance? The doctor shifted in his seat. I examined her. Maybe it was somewhere else. Somewhere else? Arthur raised his voice. Doctor, where else could you have examined my client? The doctor didn't answer. Arthur continued. Is it true that Mr. Greg Ortega paid you $13,000 for that false report? The room erupted in murmurs. The judge banged the gavel. Order. The doctor stood up. That is a baseless accusation. I never. Arthur interrupted him. I have the bank records. I have the transfers. And I have a recording of Mr. Ortega talking about that payment. Greg stood up abruptly. That's a lie. He's inventing everything. The judge looked at him sternly. Mr. Ortega, sit down, or I will have you removed from the courtroom. Greg sat down. He was red with rage. Sarah had her hands over her mouth. Her eyes were full of tears. Arthur played the audio. Greg's voice filled the room. Yeah, Dr. Harrison, I already filed the petition. With your report, it'll be easy. The judge will declare her incapacitated in 2 weeks tops. And once I'm her legal guardian, I sell the land and pay you the other $5,000 I owe you. The silence that followed was absolute. The judge looked at Greg with disgust. Dr. Harrison was paralyzed. Greg's lawyer looked at his papers, not knowing what to say. Arthur turned off the audio. Your Honor, this is fraud, conspiracy, forgery of medical documents. Mr. Ortega paid Dr. Harrison to create a false diagnosis with the sole objective of taking control of my client's assets, specifically, a plot of land valued at $150,000. The judge took off his glasses, cleaned them slowly. Put them back on. Dr. Harrison, do you have anything to say in your defense? The doctor stuttered. I can explain. It was a misunderstanding. The judge raised his hand. Enough. This case will be referred to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Dr. Harrison, your medical license will be suspended immediately. You may step down. The doctor left the room almost running. We all watched him go. Greg had his head in his hands. Now, said the judge, I would like to hear the next witness for the defense. Arthur nodded. I call Dr. Stephen Caldwell. Dr. Caldwell stood up, walked calmly to the stand, swore to tell the truth. Arthur began. Dr. Caldwell, did you examine Mrs. Eleanor Vance? Yes. I examined her a week ago. I performed a full cognitive evaluation. Memory tests, reasoning, decision-making capacity, and what was your conclusion? Dr. Caldwell looked at me with a kind smile. Mrs. Vance is in perfect mental state. She shows no sign of dementia or cognitive decline. Her memory is excellent. Her reasoning capacity is clear. She is completely capable of making her own decisions. Arthur showed the report to the judge. I have here Dr. Caldwell's full report. It includes all tests performed. Results, conclusions, everything is documented. The judge reviewed the report, nodded slowly. This completely contradicts Dr. Harrison's report. Arthur nodded. Exactly, Your Honor, because Dr. Harrison's report is a forgery bought with money. The judge looked at Greg. Mr. Ortega, this is very serious. Do you have anything to say? Greg stood up. He was shaking. I just wanted to protect her. She is old. She can't take care of herself alone, I thought. The judge interrupted him. You thought you could buy a false diagnosis? Did you think you could steal her property? Did you think the law wouldn't find out? Greg didn't answer. He just lowered his head. Arthur continued. Your Honor, I also have evidence that Mr. Ortega planned to commit Mrs. Vance to a nursing home with deplorable conditions. The Golden Horizon Care Home, a place with multiple reports of abuse and negligence. The goal was to isolate her, strip her of any possibility of defending herself, and take total control of her assets. The judge slammed the table. This is repugnant. Do you have more evidence? Arthur called Brenda to the stand. She stood up, walked with dignity, swore to tell the truth. Miss Lopez, are you Mrs. Vance's neighbor? Yes, I live in the apartment next door. Have you witnessed the treatment Mr. Ortega gives Mrs. Vance? Brenda nodded. Yes, I have seen him yell at her, insult her, forbid her from using the living room, treat her as if she were a burden, a nuisance. Sarah sobbed audibly. The judge looked at her. She lowered her eyes. "And did you record any conversation of Mr. Ortega?" asked Arthur. Brenda nodded. "Yes, I recorded several conversations where he talked about his plans, about how he was going to sell the land, about how he was going to get rid of Mrs. Vance." Arthur played another audio. This time, it was the conversation between Greg and Sarah. Sarah's voice sounded tired. "Greg, I don't know if this is right. She's my mother." Greg's voice was cold. "Your mother had her life. Now it's our turn. That land is worth $150,000. With that, we pay everything off and have enough left to live well for years." Sarah broke down. She began to cry uncontrollably. She stood up, ran toward me, knelt in front of me. "Mom, forgive me. Forgive me. I didn't want to. Greg convinced me. He told me it was for the best. He told me you would be fine. Forgive me, please." I looked at her. I saw my little girl. The girl I raised. The girl I lost. The girl who was now crying at my feet, asking for forgiveness. I put my hand on her head. "Stand up, Sarah." She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Do you forgive me?" I didn't answer. I just helped her up. The judge watched us in silence. Then he spoke. "Mrs. Vance, do you have anything to say?" I stood up, walked to the center of the room, looked at the judge, looked at Greg, looked at Sarah, and I spoke. "Your Honor, I am not an uneducated woman. I am not a confused woman. I am a 70-year-old woman who raised her daughter alone after becoming a widow, who worked, who saved, who sacrificed everything to give her a good life. I am a woman who trusted the wrong people, who kept silent when she should have spoken. But I am not going to keep silent anymore. Greg Ortega didn't just try to steal my property. He tried to steal my dignity, my freedom, my life. And he almost succeeded. If it weren't for Arthur Pendleton, a man I helped years ago without asking for anything in return, I would now be locked in that horrible asylum, lost, forgotten. While he lived off my dead husband's money, my voice didn't shake, my eyes didn't cry. I stood firm. I asked for justice. I asked that this man face the consequences of his actions. I asked that it be recognized that I am completely capable of managing my life, and I asked that other women be protected from suffering what I suffered. The judge nodded slowly. "Mrs. Vance, the court recognizes your full mental capacity. The petition for declaration of incapacity is completely rejected. Furthermore, I order that criminal proceedings be initiated against Mr. Greg Ortega for fraud, conspiracy, and forgery of documents. He is remanded into custody until bail is set." 2 officers approached Greg. He looked at Sarah. "Sarah, help me. Tell them, this is a mistake." Sarah looked at him. Then she looked at me. And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter make a decision. "No, Greg, this is not a mistake. This is justice." The officers took Greg away. He was shouting, protesting, threatening, but no one listened. I stood there, watching them take him away, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt peace. We left the court in silence. Arthur walked beside me. Brenda walked behind. "Doctor," Caldwell said goodbye with a hug. "Take care, Mrs. Vance. You are stronger than you think." I thanked him. Sarah came out last. Her eyes were swollen, her face stained with tears. She looked at me from afar. I kept walking. I wasn't ready to talk to her. Not yet. Arthur took me to a coffee shop near the court. We sat by the window. He ordered 2 coffees, waited until we were alone. "Mrs. Vance, we did it. Greg is going to face criminal charges. He could go to prison for several years." I nodded. I knew I should feel relieved, victorious. But I just felt tired, a deep tiredness that reached my bones. "And now what?" I asked. Arthur drank his coffee. "Now you are free. You can do whatever you want. Go wherever you want. Live however you want." I looked out the window. People passed by, walking fast, with purpose, with destinations. I had no destination, no home. The house where I had lived for the last 2 years belonged to Sarah and Greg. I couldn't go back there. I didn't want to go back there. "I need a place to live," I said. Arthur nodded. I already thought of that. I know a small apartment for rent. It's not luxurious, but it's dignified, safe. And the price is reasonable. $800 a month. Are you interested? I thought about my financial situation. I had the savings from William's life insurance. About $20,000 in the bank. Enough to live modestly for a while. But I needed to be careful. I no longer had the land. I no longer had that safety net. Yes, I replied. I want to see it. Arthur smiled. Perfect. We can go right now if you want. We finished the coffee. Left. Walked 3 blocks. The building was old but well maintained. 3 floors, brick facade, flowers in some windows. We went up to the 2nd floor. Arthur knocked on the door of number 6. A woman opened it. She must have been about 50. Kind smile. Hi, Arthur. This must be the lady you told me about. Arthur nodded. Mrs. Vance, this is Rosalind Pierce, the owner of the building. Rosalind extended her hand. I shook it. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Vance. Arthur told me her situation. I am very sorry for what happened. I nodded. Thank you. She let us in. The apartment was small. 1 room, an integrated kitchen, a bathroom. But it was clean. The walls painted white, wood floor, a large window that let in natural light. It was simple, but it was mine. What do you think? Asked Rosalind. I walked through the space, touched the walls, looked out the window. From there you could see a park, trees, kids playing, life. I like it, I said. Rosalind smiled. Then it's yours. Arthur told me you might need a few days to bring your things. No problem. The key is available from today. I thanked her. We signed the lease. I paid her the first month and the deposit. $1,600. Rosalind handed me the keys. I felt their weight in my hand. The weight of a new beginning. Arthur left after helping me get some basic furniture. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, the essentials. I bought it at a thrift store. I spent $500. The money was going down, but I didn't care. I had a roof. I had dignity. I had freedom. That night I slept in my new bed, in my new apartment, in my new life. And for the first time in years, I slept deeply. The next morning, Sarah called. I let the phone ring. I didn't answer. She called again, and again, and again. Finally, I answered. Mom! Her voice sounded broken, desperate. Sarah, Mom, please. I need to talk to you. I need to see you. I stayed silent. Where are you? She asked. In a safe place, I answered. Can I come see you? No. Silence. Mom, I'm so sorry. I know I ruined everything. I know I hurt you. But I need you. Greg is in jail. The house is in both our names. I can't pay the mortgage alone. I don't know what to do. I felt a pang in my chest, but I didn't give in. Sarah, you chose. You chose Greg over me. You chose money over your mother. Now you have to live with those decisions. But Mom, no, I interrupted her. I am not going to rescue you. Not this time. You have to learn. You have to grow. And you have to do it alone. She started crying. I can't do it alone. I don't know how. I didn't know either, I said. But I learned. When your father died, I didn't know how to go on, but I went on. Because I had no other option. Now you don't have one either. I hung up the phone. I sat on the bed. I cried. I cried for my daughter, for the relationship we had lost, for the years we would never get back. But I also knew I had done the right thing. Sarah needed to hit rock bottom. She needed to understand the consequences. She needed to find her own strength. I couldn't give it to her. She had to find it alone. The following days were days of adjustment. I learned the neighborhood routes, found the nearest supermarket, the pharmacy, the bakery, met some neighbors. Everyone was kind. No one knew me. No one knew my story. It was a relief. To be able to be simply Eleanor, not the betrayed mother, not the victim, just Eleanor. One afternoon, Arthur came to visit me. He brought news. Greg didn't get bail. He's going to stay in prison until the trial. His lawyer resigned from the case. Apparently, he hadn't paid him. Now he has a public defender. I nodded. And Sarah? Arthur hesitated. Sarah is cooperating with the district attorney's office. She is testifying against Greg. In exchange, she probably won't face charges. She will only have to pay a fine, and probably do community service. She asked about me. Arthur nodded. Yes. She asks often. Says she wants to see you, that she needs to talk to you. I looked out the window. The park was full of people. Families, mothers with children, grandmothers with grandchildren. Normal life. I'm not ready, I said. Arthur put his hand on mine. I understand. Take your time. There is no rush. 2 weeks passed. I established a routine. I woke up early, made coffee, ate breakfast watching the news, went out for a walk in the park, read in the afternoons, cooked for myself. Simple meals, rice, chicken, vegetables. Nothing elaborate, just what was necessary. The nights were the hardest. Loneliness felt heavier, silence louder, but little by little, I got used to it. I learned to be alone without feeling lonely. One day, Brenda came to visit me. She brought flowers, a chocolate cake. We sat at my small table. We ate cake, drank tea, talked about everything and nothing, about life, about the weather, about her children who lived far away. It was nice, simple, real. How do you feel? She asked me. I thought about her question. Different, I answered. Lighter, but also sadder. She nodded. It's normal. You lost a lot, but you also gained a lot. What did I gain? She smiled. Your freedom, your dignity, your voice. She was right. I had gained those things, but the cost had been high. I had lost my daughter, or at least the version of my daughter I knew. The question was, could we rebuild something new? Or was the rift too deep to heal? I had no answers, only questions. And time. Lots of time. 1 month after the hearing, Arthur called me. Mrs. Vance, I need to see you. I have important news. We met at the usual coffee shop. He arrived with his briefcase, sat in front of me, ordered coffee, waited until we were served. Greg's trial was this week. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud, conspiracy, and document forgery. Also, he has to pay a fine of $50,000, a fine he obviously can't pay because he has nothing. I nodded slowly. 5 years. It was a long time. But it also seemed little for everything he had tried to do to me. And Sarah? I asked. Arthur sighed. Sarah testified against him. She told everything. How he manipulated her, how he convinced her that you were sick, how he pressured her to sign the documents. The judge considered that she acted under emotional coercion. She is not going to prison. But she has to pay a fine of $10,000 and do 200 hours of community service. She also has a restraining order from you for 1 year. She cannot contact you without your permission. Restraining order. The words sounded so cold, so definitive. My own daughter couldn't get near me by court order. Arthur continued. There is something else. Sarah lost the house. She couldn't pay the mortgage. The bank took it. Now she is living with a friend, working double shifts to pay her debts. She is, he paused, destroyed. I felt a knot in my stomach. Part of me wanted to run to help her. Part of me wanted to hug her and tell her everything was going to be okay. But another part, the part that had learned to protect itself, knew I couldn't do it. Not yet. She has tried to contact me. Arthur nodded. Constantly. She calls me, asks about you, asks me to tell her where you are, to let her see you. I tell her she needs to respect your space, that when you are ready, you will contact her. Thank you, I said. Arthur looked at me with those kind eyes he always had. Mrs. Vance, I know this is hard. She is your daughter. But you did the right thing. You taught her that actions have consequences. That betrayal has a price. Now she has to learn to live with that. I nodded. I knew he was right. But it didn't make it hurt any less. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake thinking about Sarah, about how it had come to this, about all the signs I had ignored, about all the moments I should have intervened, when Greg started controlling her, when he started isolating her from her friends, when he started making all the decisions for her. I saw all that, but I thought it was her marriage, that it wasn't my place to interfere. And now we were here, her destroyed, me alone, both paying the price of my silence. The next morning, I received a letter. The sender was Sarah. My hand trembled as I opened it. Inside were 3 handwritten pages, Sarah's handwriting. That handwriting I knew so well. I began to read. Mom, I know you don't want to talk to me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know some things. I need you to understand how I got here. I need you to know I'm sorry. That I'm sorry more than words can express. I met Greg when I was vulnerable. I had just ended a difficult relationship. I felt alone, lost. He appeared and made me feel special, made me feel loved, made me feel important. At first, he was perfect, attentive, affectionate, generous. But after the wedding, everything changed. He began to control every aspect of my life, my clothes, my friends, my money. He told me it was for my own good, that he just wanted to protect me, and I believed him. Because I wanted to believe that someone loved me enough to want to take care of me like that. But it wasn't care, it was control. It was manipulation. And when I realized it, it was too late. I had already lost my independence. I had already lost my voice. I had already lost my mother. When Greg lost his job, everything got worse. He became bitter, resentful. He started drinking, yelling at me, blaming me for everything. And then he discovered the land. Your land. Dad's land. And he became obsessed with it. He talked about it constantly, about how that money could save us, about how it was the solution to all our problems. He convinced me that you were sick, showed me articles about senile dementia, told me it was normal that I didn't see it because I lived with you all the time, that I needed perspective, that you needed professional help, and I believed him. Because I wanted to believe him, because it was easier to believe him than to face him. When he proposed the nursing home, I hesitated. Something inside me knew it was wrong, but he told me it was temporary, that it would only be until you stabilized, that then we would bring you back. And I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Because the alternative was admitting that I had married a monster, that I had betrayed my own mother for a man who didn't love me. I have no excuses, Mom. I have no justifications. I did what I did, and now I have to live with that. I lost my house. I lost my marriage. I lost my dignity. But the worst is that I lost you, and I don't know if I will ever be able to get you back. I am working 2 jobs. By day as a secretary, by night cleaning offices. I barely sleep, barely eat, but I don't care. Because this is my punishment. This is my penance, and I deserve it. I just want you to know that I love you, that I have always loved you, that Dad would be ashamed of me, that I am ashamed of me. And that if one day you can forgive me, if one day you can give me another chance, I will do everything possible to be the daughter you deserve to have, with all my love and all my regret. Sarah. I let the letter fall. Tears ran down my face. My heart felt split in 2. One part wanted to run to find her, the other wanted to protect itself from the pain. I sat on the couch, hugged my knees, and cried. I cried for my daughter, for the girl she was, for the woman she became, for the mother I couldn't be. 3 days passed before I could respond. I sat down with pen and paper, wrote and erased, wrote and erased. Finally, I found the words. Sarah, I received your letter. I read it many times. I understand your pain. I understand your regret. But understanding is not the same as forgiving. I still cannot forgive you. Maybe one day I can. But not today. What you did to me wasn't just a betrayal. It was an attempt to steal my life, my freedom, my dignity. It was an attempt to lock me up, to silence me, to make me disappear. And although I understand that Greg manipulated you, you are an adult. You made decisions. You signed papers. You looked the other way while he mistreated me. I don't know if one day we will be able to rebuild our relationship. Right now, I can't even imagine what that would be like. What I do know is that I need time. I need to heal. I need to learn to trust again. And that won't happen quickly. Meanwhile, I wish you well. I hope you learn from this. I hope you find your strength. I hope you never again allow anyone to control you like Greg did. And I hope that one day, when you look in the mirror, you can feel proud of the woman you see. With love, but also with pain, Mom. I sent the letter, I didn't wait for an answer. I just let it go. Let my words fly to her, and let go of a little of the weight I carried in my chest. A week later, Arthur called me again. "Mrs. Vance, there is something you need to know. The story of your case became public. A journalist covered the trial, wrote an article. It went viral. There are hundreds of women sharing their own stories of family abuse, of children who robbed them, of families who abandoned them. Your courage inspired many people." I stayed silent. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought my story could help someone else. "Also," Arthur continued, "the Haven of Peace Foundation wants to meet you. They want to thank you personally for the donation of the land, and they want to invite you to be part of the project, to help design the shelter, to be the voice of the women who are going to live there." I felt something move inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. "When?" I asked. "Whenever you want," answered Arthur. "They are available." I thought for a moment. "Next week. Tell them I'll go next week." Arthur laughed softly. "There she is. There is the Eleanor I know, the one who doesn't give up, the one who keeps going." I hung up the phone. I looked in the mirror. 70 years old, deep wrinkles, white hair, but alive eyes, eyes that had cried, that had suffered, but that could still see, could still dream, could still imagine a future. And that future began now. The following week, Arthur took me to the offices of the Haven of Peace Foundation. They were downtown, a modest building, concrete walls painted cream, a small plaque at the entrance. We went up to the 3rd floor. A woman welcomed us. She must have been about 40. Black hair tied back, warm smile. "Mrs. Vance, it is an honor to meet you. I am Catherine Pendleton, director of the foundation." We shook hands. We entered a meeting room. There were 3 other people there, all women, all smiling. Catherine introduced us. "They are part of our team. Gilda Ortega, social worker. Rosalind Pierce, architect." I was surprised. "Rosalind? The owner of my building?" Rosalind laughed. "Yes, Mrs. Vance, I am also a volunteer here. When Arthur told me your story, I knew we had to help you. And when I learned about the land donation, I knew you were special." We sat around the table. Catherine opened a folder. "Mrs. Vance, thanks to your generous donation, we will be able to build a shelter for 20 older women. Women who have suffered abuse, abandonment, or family violence. Women who need a safe place to rebuild their lives. Your land is perfect. It is in a quiet area, has enough space, and has water and electricity available." She showed blueprints, drawings, designs of what the shelter would be like. Individual rooms, a community kitchen, a living room, a garden. Everything thought out to give dignity and peace. "We want you to be part of this," said Catherine. "We want you to help us make decisions, to tell us what women like you need, what would make them feel safe, what would make them feel at home." I looked at the blueprints. I felt something expand in my chest. "They need privacy," I said, "but also community. They need their own space to heal, but they also need to know they are not alone." Gilda nodded. "Exactly. That is why each room has its private bathroom. But the common areas are designed to foster coexistence, so they can support each other." We spent 2 hours reviewing every detail. I gave my opinion on everything: the colors of the walls, the height of the beds, the size of the windows. They listened, took notes, valued my words. It was strange, new, feeling heard, feeling valued, feeling important. At the end of the meeting, Catherine took my hands. "Mrs. Vance, your name and your husband's will be on a plaque at the entrance. The William and Eleanor Vance Shelter, a place of peace and dignity for brave women. We want your story to inspire others. We want them to know there is hope after pain." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. I just cried. But this time they were tears of gratitude, of purpose, of peace. That night, when I returned to my apartment, I sat by the window. I looked at the park, the city lights, life continuing, and I thought of William. How he would be proud. How our dream, although different from what we had imagined, was finally coming true. It wasn't a house for us. It was a home for many, and that was even more beautiful. 2 weeks later, I received another letter from Sarah. This time it was shorter. Mom, I understand you need time. I respect that. I just want you to know I started therapy. I am working on myself, on understanding why I allowed Greg to control me, on finding my own voice. It is hard, painful, but necessary. I also joined a support group for victims of domestic abuse. There I met other women who went through the same thing. They helped me see that I am not alone, that I can heal. I love you. Always. Sarah. I put the letter in a drawer, together with the first one. One day I would reread them. One day maybe I could respond with more than pain. But not yet. I still needed more time, more distance, more healing. A month later, Arthur gave me the latest news. Greg was transferred to a state prison. He is going to serve his full sentence. There is no possibility of early parole. The judge was very clear. What he did was atrocious, and he is going to pay for it. I nodded. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because justice had been served. Sadness because all this could have been avoided. If Sarah had been stronger. If I had seen the signs sooner. If Greg had been a different man. Also, Arthur continued, Dr. Harrison lost his medical license permanently. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for falsifying documents. His reputation is destroyed. He will never practice medicine again. I thought about that man, about how he had sold his ethics for $13,000, about how many other people he might have harmed, how many other Eleanors would have suffered for his lies. At least now he wouldn't be able to do it anymore. Weeks passed. Construction of the shelter began. I went every week to supervise, to give opinions, to talk to the workers. I felt useful, necessary, part of something bigger than myself. The women on the team became my friends. We ate together, laughed together, shared stories. They also had scars. They had also suffered, but they were there. Standing, fighting, helping others. One day, while walking on the land, I saw something that took my breath away. A tree. An old, large tree in a corner of the property. I hadn't noticed it before. It had a thick trunk, spreading branches, bright green leaves. I approached, touched its bark, and I felt William. I felt his presence, his love, his pride. We did it, love, I whispered. Not how we thought, but we did it. I decided that tree would stay, that it would be the center of the garden, that the women could sit under its shade, that they could find peace there like I had found it. Rosalind agreed. It's perfect, she said. It's a symbol of deep roots, of strength, of life continuing. I nodded. It was exactly that. 3 months after the hearing, Brenda came to visit me. She brought news. Mrs. Vance, remember the journalist who wrote about your case? I nodded. She wants to interview you. She wants to do a deeper report. About abuse of the elderly. About how the system fails. About how women like you find the strength to fight. Would you be willing? I hesitated. I didn't like attention. I didn't want to be famous. But I thought of all the letters I had received. From women thanking me for speaking out. For showing them they weren't alone. For giving them hope. Yes, I finally said. I will do it. If it can help just one woman find her voice, it's worth it. The interview was difficult. I had to relive everything. The mistreatment, the betrayal, the pain. But I could also talk about the healing, about the forgiveness I was still building, about the shelter, about the purpose I had found. The journalist cried while I spoke. Your story is powerful, she said. It's going to change lives. The article was published 2 weeks later, with photos, with testimonies, with information about resources for older people in abuse situations. My phone didn't stop ringing. Calls from women, from organizations, from people wanting to help. Catherine called me excited. Mrs. Vance, we received donations for $50,000. People who read your story and want to support the shelter. This is incredible. I sat on my sofa, overwhelmed, grateful, amazed. My pain was creating hope. My story was healing others. My voice was amplifying the voices of thousands of silenced women. William would be proud. I was proud. That night, I wrote in my journal, something I had started doing as part of my own therapy. Today, I understood something. Pain is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the fire that transforms us. I am not the same Eleanor I was 6 months ago. That Eleanor was afraid, was quiet, was broken. This Eleanor has a voice, has purpose, has peace. And although there are still difficult days, although there are still nights when I cry, I know I am on the right path. I know I am going to be okay. I know I am already free. 6 months after the hearing, the shelter was almost finished. The walls painted, the furniture installed, the garden blooming. I was there the day of the inauguration, dressed in a beige suit, hair carefully combed, heart full of emotions. There was press, city officials, volunteers, and 20 women. The first residents of the William and Eleanor Vance shelter. Catherine asked me to speak. I hadn't prepared anything. I only had my truth. I stood in front of the microphone, looked at all those faces, women of different ages, different stories, but all with the same pain in their eyes, the same pain I had had. My name is Eleanor Vance, I began. I am 70 years old, and 6 months ago, my son-in-law tried to steal my life, tried to lock me up, silence me, erase me. He almost succeeded, but he didn't succeed, because I found my voice, because I found my strength, because I refused to disappear. My voice didn't shake, my hands didn't shake. I was steady. This place exists because my husband William dreamed of building something beautiful. He died before he could do it. But his dream didn't die. It transformed. Now it is a home for you, for women who have been betrayed by their own families, women who deserve dignity, who deserve peace, who deserve a second chance. Tears ran down my face, but I kept talking. You are not victims. You are survivors. You are warriors. And this is your shelter, your fortress, your beginning. The applause was deafening. The women stood up. Some cried. Others smiled. All looked at me with gratitude. Catherine hugged me. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for your courage, for your generosity, for your heart. I just nodded. I couldn't speak. Emotion choked me. After the ceremony, I walked through the garden. I reached William's tree. I sat under its shade, closed my eyes, felt the wind on my face, the sun on my skin, peace in my soul. We did it. Love, I whispered. We did it. A week later, I received one last letter from Sarah. I opened it with trembling hands. Mom, I saw the news about the shelter inauguration. I saw your speech. I cried for hours. I am so proud of you, so proud of the woman you are, so ashamed of what I did to you. I know you still can't forgive me. I understand. But I want you to know I am changing. I left both jobs. I got a better one. As a coordinator at a help center for women victims of domestic violence, I am using my experience to help others, so they don't make my mistakes, so they find their voice before losing it, like I lost mine. One day, if you allow me, I would like to visit you. I would like to see the shelter. I would like to help in some way. But only if you want. Only when you are ready. I love you, Mom. I have always loved you. I will always love you. Sarah. I folded the letter. I put it with the others. And for the first time since everything began, I felt something different. It wasn't complete forgiveness. Not yet. But it was openness. It was the possibility of healing. The possibility of rebuilding. Maybe one day. Maybe soon. But on my terms. In my time. The following months were months of growth. The shelter was full. The women flourished. Some got jobs. Others reunited with family members who supported them. All found peace. I visited every week. Talked to them. Listened to their stories. Shared mine. We healed together. One afternoon, while drinking coffee with one of the residents, she asked me, Mrs. Vance, how did you know it was time to fight? I thought about her question. I didn't know, I answered honestly. I was afraid. I had doubts. But I was more afraid of disappearing, of letting them erase me, of dying without having really lived. So I decided that if I was going to fall, I would fall fighting. And it turns out I didn't fall. I rose. She smiled. You give us hope. I took her hand. You give me purpose. 1 year after the hearing, Arthur visited me. He brought papers. Mrs. Vance, I have something for you. He put the documents on the table. The Haven of Peace Foundation wants to offer you a position as honorary director, with a modest salary, $1,200 a month. It's not much, but it's stable, and it would allow you to keep doing the work you love. I looked at the papers, looked at Arthur, smiled. I accept. And that was how my life transformed completely. From victim to survivor. From silenced to spokesperson. From broken to healed. It wasn't easy. It wasn't fast. But it was real. It was mine. It was the beginning I never thought I would have at 70 years old. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see something different. I see wrinkles that tell stories. I see white hair that represents wisdom. I see eyes that have cried, but that have also seen justice. I see a woman who refused to give up. A woman who found her voice. A woman who is living, not just existing. And Sarah? 2 months ago, I finally called her. We talked for hours. She cried. I cried. We asked each other for forgiveness. Her for betraying me for not having seen her pain sooner. Everything isn't resolved. It probably never will be completely. But we are trying, rebuilding, step by step, day by day, with patience, with love, with hope. Life taught me something valuable. It is never too late to start over. It is never too late to find your voice. It is never too late to fight for your dignity. And never, never is it too late to live. Today I am 71 years old. I live alone in my small apartment. I work at the shelter. I help women. I write my story. I drive my own car, something I learned to do 6 months ago. I go out to dinner with friends, visit museums, read books. I live. I really live. And when people ask me how I achieved it, I always answer the same thing, one step at a time, with fear, but with more courage, with pain, but with more hope, with the certainty that I deserve dignity, that I deserve respect, that I deserve to live. If you are listening to this, and you feel trapped, if you feel you have no voice, if you feel it is too late for you, please, listen to me. It is not. It is never too late. You too can rise. You too can fight. You too can live. Seek help. Speak up. Don't stay silent. Your voice matters. Your life matters. You matter. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. If it touched your heart, leave me a comment. Share your story. Let's help each other. Because together we are stronger. Together we are invincible. And remember, silence is not peace. True peace comes when you find your voice and use it. See you soon, friends. And remember, it is never too late to bloom.